Welcome to Focus on NEMCTV6. I'm your host, SHARRON JUSKO. Today I'm going to be talking with Mr. Jeff White from the Richmond LENOX EMS, and he is also in charge of the smart transportation service that's in the area. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Sharon. Good to see you again, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you. Would you like to tell the people a little bit about your history with the EMS?
Sure. I came to the Richmond area in 1989 after serving about 9 years down in the Detroit area providing paramedic service. I came here as the director of EMS services when the EMS was a far smaller operation. In those days we had one ambulance, one station, and when I came in the morning my primary job was to do the dishes before taking a 911 call. So today the EMS has grown quite a bit. We serve an area that starts in New Haven and ends in about Emmett and then runs west here to the Armada area and east over to the St. Clair County portions of our service area. The EMS has 3 stations now, 6 paramedic units, and about 48 employees that provide 24-hour a day, 7-day a week emergency medical service care.
That's great. When did the Richmond LENOX EMS start getting involved with the smart transportation?
So that's an interesting story. I think we probably started thinking we needed to be involved in it in about 1990, but it took us about 9 years to figure out a way to do it. We would frequently get calls at the EMS for especially from our seniors and disabled folks in the community that needed transportation for everything from medical care to go get their pharmaceuticals to dialysis, oncology, physical therapy, and they really didn't have a good way to get there. And there was some services that provided that kind of transportation, but they were for the most part privately owned, and so they charged $50 or $75 or $100 to get somebody to something like dialysis or other treatment. And so the folks that really needed this service, generally speaking, didn't have that kind of money. So we looked for years and years to find a way to provide that service to our area's residents. And in 1999, a group of our local elected officials, Keith Rengert from Richmond Township, Tim Ricks from the city of Richmond, John Gardner from LENOX in those days, sat down with the folks at SMART and recognized that all of us in this area pay about $500,000 to SMART in the form of a millage, in the form of taxes, but we really don't have any buses that operate here.
Right.
And we sat down and in that discussion tried to find a way that we could provide some service for these medical transports that really didn't need an ambulance. And so that's how I got involved. I was really an ambulance guy who got into public transportation, if you will. And so at those meetings, we finally came up with the idea of being able to have a vehicle here that would be available in the community for just these kind of needs. We thought that we'd have one vehicle, and maybe we'd provide 5 or 6 transports a week, and what a great service that would be for our communities sometimes most needy. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm kind of pleased to report that in 2013, we've provided 22,000 rides a year.
Wow.
On 5 different vehicles with about 12 part-time drivers.
Where are these vehicles stationed? Are they all at one location or spread out through?
Right now we keep them all at one of our buildings. It's the building near New Haven at 27 Mile Road in Gratiot. That's kind of our terminal for the vehicles at this point. We'll make a little news today, and I'll tell you that we're looking very hard at the opportunities through some grant programs to actually build a structure that will house those vehicles, so we'll get them inside. Right now they kind of just sit in a parking lot, and so they're exposed to the weather. They're cold when the drivers get in and the passengers get in the morning, and we're looking very hard and have some pretty good leads on the possibility of actually building a structure that'll hold those vehicles, keep them warm, allow us to maintain them indoors. So we hope that'll happen here in the next 12 months or so.
That would be great. And this is nothing, this smart program that we have, it's nothing like the transportation that we see down on Gratiot where the buses go and pick up people at different locations.
Right, it's different than that. So the buses on Gratiot serve a very useful purpose in the process of, getting people to appointments, getting people to work. But the issue with those buses is they go from what we call curb to curb service, which means, they pull up at the curbside. Somebody has to be able to physically get on the bus, know where to get off the bus, and then get off on their own. We started calling our service door-to-door service when we began it some years ago. And then I realized it really wasn't door-to-door service either. It was living room to living room service. Our drivers literally go into the residents' homes, and when they go in the homes, they will help them outside, whether they need help just because they have a walker, whether they're just a little unsteady on their feet, whether they're blind, or whether they need to be brought out in a wheelchair right to the vehicle. The vehicles all have hydraulic lifts on them, so if somebody can't navigate the steps or are in a wheelchair, they can be lifted. They can be lifted right up in the vehicle, put inside the vehicle and secured for safe transportation, and then we do the same thing when we return. We realized real quickly with the service that, especially out here in a lot of our rural areas, the curb, if you will, is 180 feet from the front door. So to think that our seniors and disabled residents were going to be able to navigate that safely was something that we weren't going to be able to do. And we really, when we said to SMART, geez, we'd like to go right into their house and get them, SMART's response was, what? You're going to do what? And do you understand the liability of that? And I said, well, we operate ambulances all day. We understand liability pretty well. And we don't have a problem entering people's home to make sure that they get to their doctor's appointments.
Okay. We're going to take a brief recess at this time, and we will be back. Stay tuned. We have a lot more to discuss.
Did you take your medicine?
Oh, gosh, I forgot it.
Her nurse. Need a claim number? Her personal assistant. Let me just grab her housekeeper. Her cook. Her accountant. When I started taking care of Mom, I didn't realize the challenge of playing so many roles. But above all, I'm still her daughter.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving to connect with experts and other caregivers. Together we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
Welcome back to Focus on NEMCTV6. Today we're speaking with Mr. Jeff White from the Richmond Lennox EMS in regards to the Smart Transportation Service. So, well, before we left, we were discussing you taking people right from their homes to locations. Is this strictly to hospitals and doctor appointments, or are other opportunities available for people?
Originally when we began the service, our focus was on our seniors and disabled, and I would say they still make up 2/3 to 3/4 of our riders today. Having said that, it is public transportation, which means it can be used by anybody, and it can be used for almost anything. And what I mean by that is we take people not only to doctor's appointments and for medical treatment, we take them to the grocery store, we take them to the hairdresser, we take them to their local senior centers for activities right here in Armada, Richmond, and Lenox, and Chesterfield. And so we provide that kind of transportation that's more a service for social good, if you will. We also received a grant here just about 2 years ago. And the purpose of the grant was to get people to and from work. And especially during those years when the economy had taken such a terrible downturn, cars sometimes became an unaffordable luxury for some of our residents. And so then and today, a resident can still call, and we will pick them up at home and take them to their place of employment. Or a resident who might have a disability that keeps them from driving, blindness or a seizure disorder, but works just fine in the regular workforce, goes into work every day, but simply can't drive a car, can call and get transportation to and from their employer.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds fantastic. Are they limited to within so many miles?
We do try to keep things about 20 to 25 miles from the point of pickup. It sounds like a long distance, but from here that's really not all that far. Our initial plan in that mileage was to get people into what I call the medical care corridors, the areas where the hospitals and a lot of the doctors and treatment centers were. And so that's how we picked that mileage distance. We've remained with that mileage distance because it allows us to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. We can get far more people on the vehicles if we're doing trips that are 10, 15, 20 miles than we can if we do a trip, if you will, all the way to Detroit.
Right.
Having said that, we have had some of our local senior centers from time to time say would like to take a trip down to the Greenfield Village was one that we did recently, and we went and picked them up and took a group down there for a tour of the museums and for lunch. So that is available as well, and is often coordinated through the local senior directors, but really anybody can coordinate something like that.
That's good. So we're not talking about this being just one individual person riding at a time. It can be multiple people and...
Right. Sometimes we do get confused for what might be a cab service or like an airport limousine kind of service where people are surprised when we show up at their house and then show up at 3 more houses before we get them to their destination. That's the part of this that is public transportation, which means, again, we're going to do the greatest good for the greatest number. We're going to we may pick up one person in Memphis, come over to Armada, get a person, scoot back over to Richmond and get a person, stop in New Haven, all on our way down to one of the hospitals or areas down south of Chesterfield Township.
Yeah, then how many communities are you actually servicing with the SMART program?
Well, my math's never been good, but the communities,
what are these communities?
The communities are that we service are the Armada area, where we are today, New Baltimore, New Haven, Chesterfield, Lenox, Ray, Richmond City and Township, and the city of Memphis. I look at my notes a little bit to make sure that we don't leave any of our community partners out with a question like that.
That sounds good. That does cover a lot of people in this area, and there are a lot of people that desperately need these services. I understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, we've also used the services for things as wonderful, frankly, as a grandmother getting to a granddaughter's wedding, and as sad, if you will, as a widow or widower getting to their spouse's funeral. And so there's really almost nothing that's off the table for the use of these vehicles. What I encourage people to do is call and ask. The worst answer we can give you is no, and I would say in 99% of the cases the answer is going to be yes.
Right. How far in advance do they need to let you know that they would need a transportation?
We tell people give us at least 48 hours, but with the number of trips that we're doing now, the sooner the better. If you have a appointment or know you need to be somewhere, whether, again, it's for the hairdresser or the doctor or a meeting at the bank, call us as soon in advance as you can. Let us know. We should be the second call after you make that appointment. And like I say, if that's 6 weeks in advance, we will schedule you 6 weeks in advance. So call early and call often.
Right, call your doctor, then call Jeff.
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned the doctor. It's people sometimes don't understand that when we take someone to a doctor, we are going to leave you at the physician's office in most cases, and then we're going to come back and pick you up in just a little bit. I say that to say we'll make the phone call to the doctor for you after you've scheduled the appointment, and we will work with them to understand what time you'll be done, and then we'll be there to get you. I've not heard of too many cases where anybody waits at their doctor more than about 10 or 15 minutes for their return trip.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we're going to be taking another small break at this time. Please stay tuned with us, and we will be back shortly.
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Focus on NEMCTV6. Today we're speaking with Mr. Jeff White from the Richmond Lennox EMS in regards to the Smart Transportation Service. We were speaking before we left for the break about picking up residents, taking them to doctor's appointments and all of that, and having them schedule their appointments and schedule you at the same time. Is there any cost involved for the residents to do this?
No, the service is essentially free. Now, I'm careful when I say that, Sharon, for two reasons. One is we will accept donations. If a resident wants to donate a little bit to the service, we certainly appreciate and welcome that. But it's certainly not required, nor should anyone feel obligated. The reason I'm always careful saying free is because most of our funding does come from the resident already. It comes through tax dollars, as we talked about a little bit earlier in the show. It comes from a dedicated millage that people have to vote for every 3 years in these communities that goes to SMART. It comes from taxes that you pay on your fuel, and it comes from a couple of federal actual grant programs that, in fact, just about doubled our revenues just about 3 or 4 years ago, where we're really able to expand service. Our total revenue, or the money that comes in to operate the service these days, is about $400,000 that the service operates on. We also look at some other funding sources that become available in communities from time to time. Communities receive funds like community development block grants, which are a federal grant-sponsored program where monies are passed through the community and can be provided to organizations that provide service, especially to seniors and disabled. And usually when those opportunities arise, I attend those community meetings and talk a little bit about the service that we're providing, the number of people we're providing service to, and the worthiness of receiving some of those dollars.
Okay, that usually takes place, what, once a year for you?
Yeah, usually once a year. I'm out at those communities, and then again I'm usually out at the communities when these SMART dollars are passed through. Because how the SMART dollars work is they come from SMART, that's the bus company. They come to the local community, and then the community passes those funds through to us for operations. So usually I'm out at the communities a couple of times a year talking about this service. We have the most amazing people that work for us at the community transit operation. Many of them are retired folks on their second careers, if you will, that come in and just take wonderful care of our riders. And so I don't have to worry all too much about that. On a day-to-day basis, my job is to make sure that we have the funding to keep the wheels going down the road, if you will.
Right, that's good. Is there a special number that the community needs to call if they want to schedule this?
Yes, our number is 586-749-7713. And from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, we have a dedicated person at that number just to schedule these calls. If you imagine providing 22,000 rides a year means you have to speak to 22,000 people to schedule those. And then you have to follow up with their physicians or wherever else they may be going in order to make sure you arrange a pickup time that's convenient for everybody. So it's really like scheduling an airline, if you will. And the lady who does that for us, Benita Allen, does just a fantastic job. I don't think we'd be anywhere near the number of riders if we didn't have her organizational skills there at the phones.
So you definitely have a coordinator for this program.
We absolutely do.
Which is great. What are the actual hours of operation for this?
Sure. In all the communities that we serve, we operate the vehicle from vehicles. There's 5 vehicles out there operating every day. We actually have 6 vehicles, but one has to be available for maintenance, and so vehicles can be lube oil filtered, tires changed, things of that nature. But we operate them from 7 in the morning until 7 at night on Monday through Friday. And then with some of the grant funding that I mentioned from the federal government, we're actually able to expand service to operate on Saturdays from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m.
And so I was going to ask you if anything came up, if somebody had, what if there's an emergency? There's nothing is scheduled, but something has come up and someone needs to get to a certain location and does not have a family member to take them, but they really need to get there. Is this available also through this?
If they call us and tell us it's an emergency, especially for like health treatment, people, for instance, who need dialysis, they can't miss that.
Right.
And if the family car suddenly breaks down and the family has been transporting them, or if for whatever reason the family member can't get there to get them there, they need to call our office, tell us it's an emergency, and we will find a way to get them there. The beauty of having the EMS people around doing their daily job is if those kind of things should arise, we can always put them in a bus vehicle, send them out, and get the person there for their treatment. Because getting something like dialysis or oncology type treatments on time, chemotherapy, things of that nature, is really a matter of life and death.
Right. Okay, well, I think we have gotten a lot of information from you today, Jeff. Really appreciate you coming in and talking about this. Would you like to repeat the phone number one more time so people have that?
Sure. That number again is 586-749-7713, and our operator and dispatcher is there from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. To take your calls.
That's great. I thank you very much for coming in and discussing this with everyone. I hope this information is going to be very helpful to those in the communities. And if you're ever in need of emergency transportation or just to schedule your doctor's appointments and you have no one that can get you there, remember to contact our Smart Transportation. Thank you.